Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for 1 bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hello, friends. Welcome to a summer episode of Kirk Your Enthusiasm. I am joined once again by one of Mavs Moneyball's unofficial Slovenian correspondents, Matej. How are we doing today?
Doing fine, a bit tired. It's been a long day and a fiery day with all the news around the national basketball team and Luka. But besides that, I'm doing fine. Really looking forward to the Eurobasket. A lot of high-level games. There's been a few already, and I'm super hyped for the actual tournament. For basketball fans, it's going to be one hell of a tournament. Well worth watching for U.S. fans, too. You won't see that level, that intensity of basketball. I would venture to say till the next time we watch NBA playoffs next year. So, well worth watching.
I am looking forward to Eurobasket. But before we get to Eurobasket talk, when you came on before, it was right at the start of summer, basically giving us a preview of what Mavs fans could expect and hope for in terms of Team Slovenia and, you know, the kind of some of the intricacies of why and how NBA players can and can't play. You know, at the time, Goran Dragic had just agreed to join the team, which was huge since I don't think he's been with the team since 2017 when the team last won Eurobasket. And since then, they've played a number of friendlies and then I believe 2 World Cup qualifiers. And is that correct? The 2 on the World Cup qualifiers?
Since the beginning of summer, 4 World Cup qualifiers. 4. If you remember, the last time we talked, they played 2 against Croatia in Sweden right after Luka finished with his playoffs 2 weeks later, actually. And then the summer break. The team assembled a month ago. Luka joined the team a couple of weeks later because of those restrictions we already talked about that are put on NBA players. They're allowed only 27 days with the national team each summer. That's what the insurance policy covers. So that's pretty much set in stone. And the team played now the other 2 qualifiers. 4 more are remaining, but those will be played during the NBA and EuroLeague season, so no best players. So we were watching the best version. We are watching now the best version of the national team, which will start with Eurobasket. The qualifiers are finished now. Eurobasket starts on Wednesday. Slovenia plays their first game on Thursday.
Okay, so the games that are coming up during later are why so for those who aren't aware, Slovenia lost to Germany in a pretty brutal game. Luka played okay. Luka always
he was bad.
Well, but he was bad by his own standards. I think
by
probably,
Luka standards, of course.
Yeah, like his stat line looks great, but it was not. I mean, they got beat by double digits. Then Dennis Schrader, current NBA free agent, and I will say that Schrader basically he's the kind of NBA player who fans like. If you haven't watched him closely, I'll just say NBA teams don't really seem to care for Dennis, which is why he's a free agent. He scored just enough points, kind of in garbage time, to put the game out of reach. It was very frustrating. So that loss is sort of why this was, because I do want to talk about some of the other friendlies, because the only one I've been able to watch was Luka playing Jokic, and that was a real fun game. But it was that was a different vibe than what we've seen from these other games. And so I guess what I wanted to ask is, this loss yesterday really puts the ability to qualify for the World Cup in doubt. Is that correct? And then, sort of what happened in that particular game.
Yeah, the intricacies of FIBA basketball, the qualifiers, the tournaments, I know it can get a bit overwhelming for US fans who are more club-oriented, but the national team basketball summers are still, I wouldn't say just for Europeans, but for the rest of the world, except US, probably like the biggest part of the year when it comes to basketball. It's still the most watched, national team basketball those tournaments are more watched than EuroLeague finals, for examples, EuroLeague Final Four, than league basketball, or of course all domestic. So it's huge. But yeah, as far as the loss to Germany yesterday, what that means for Slovenia and the rest of the qualifiers, Slovenia got a lot of help later yesterday when Israel played Sweden, and Sweden beat Israel on their home court, which was quite a surprise. Israel has a couple of NBA players. Audia is probably the one most fans know from the Wizards, and a solid team with EuroLeague players too. Sweden is worse, but they somehow convincingly beat them on their home court, which means that Slovenia still has two wins ahead of Israel right now with 4 games remaining. So the battle that remains in this qualifying group with Slovenia is only the battle for the 3rd place, which still takes them to the World Cup. First 3 teams in each group qualify for the World Cup. Germany and Finland have already qualified. They're already there. They'll be first and second and first. That's already decided. And Slovenia is battling with Israel for the 3rd place with 2 wins ahead with 4 games remaining. So the chances of them qualifying, and they're playing Israel twice, once at home, once in Israel. So we'll see, but the chances look pretty good now. If Israel beat Sweden last night, it would have been tougher because, in the other qualifying games, Slovenia will be missing their top 5, 6, possibly even 7 or more players, with, of course, Luka, Dragic, Cančar, and then the players from EuroLeague. That's a whole big problem. Like Serbia is in danger of not qualifying for the World Cup. With Jokic and all other, they have one of the strongest teams in Europe. So, and Turkey in the group with Serbia and Turkey, the same group with Greece as well. Giannis and Jokic had a great battle in qualifiers. And they're one of those teams won't qualify. Most likely Turkey or Serbia, but they are in danger of not qualifying because the same goes for them. But you have to take into the account the fact that smaller countries struggle more here. Smaller countries with a smaller pool of players they can choose from. Slovenia and countries of that size are the most penalized by this qualifying format.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense now that you've kind of mapped it out for me, because it's one thing to lose a game heading into an international competition where everyone is because this was. I'll qualify it like this, Mavs fans, for those of you who didn't see this game. This looked like a game in mid-February where the team was just hoping to get to All-Star break and get some rest. Like, there was very little urgency and just some very poor play. Luka chatting with the refs a bit too much, and things went from bad to ugly. And so when you play a game like that right on the eve of heading into an international competition, period, it's probably upsetting for hardcore fans. But then when you consider implications, it just leaves a real nasty taste in one's mouth right before Eurobasket. But
it was a big game. There's no two ways about it. It was a huge game, a must-win game, especially since Slovenia played before Israel and Sweden. We didn't know how that game is going to go. As far as players are concerned, they should have approached the game much better. It was an early game too. There is some talk about players who arrived to Germany a day before that they might have stayed up a bit too long. So. And it might have affected them. We know it's a balance. I had an interesting space on Twitter yesterday after the game, and there was a lot of talk about balancing good team chemistry, which Luka emphasized after last year's Olympics as one of the things that's really important for Mavs as well, and which has to work for them. It is a very important thing, but there is such a thing as too much bonding, if you catch my drift, as too much good time. And one of the speakers yesterday mentioned actually Alyush, who wrote something for my Mavs Moneyball as well a couple of days ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. He actually said that the last year's success was built on alcohol and cards. So at the Olympics. So, and I thought it was, and it was true. The chemistry was great. The Slovenian team actually got some complaints from the Spanish team. They were partying too much despite all the COVID restrictions, and they were having a bit too much good time. So they tried to sort of get him out of the tournament, made an official complaint, which didn't, of course, go through then. But they were known as a team that, has a really good time together. And it's important, but the discussion is how much good time is too much.
That's really funny. I like that a lot. The element of like team bonding, particularly for some of these guys who have had to have known, and Goran's obviously closer to my age. Luka is, 23 years old. Some of these guys have played together or known one another for pushing 2.5 decades, I bet, in some instances, and maybe even some cases longer, depending on like youth development stuff. So it's like when you get together, particularly, and you're doing something, playing for your country, which is extremely, like, there's just a lot of pressure. So I'm sure like the blowing off some steam now and then, I can see how that can get out of hand when you put all those things together.
Yeah, and not just, all the players know each other. Actually, Serbian coach, after the friendly game with Serbia in Ljubljana, said that our national team, the Slovenian national team, reminds him as a team of guys from the same street, from the same neighborhood who have been playing together since they were kids. And even if we look at the oldest guy, Dragic, and the youngest, one of the youngest, Luka, they know each other since Goran was 17 and Luka was 5-6 years old. So even in that case, they have a relationship going back more than a decade. And guys are really tightly connected, and chemistry is a huge thing in this team. So there's a lot of talk now with the final selection of the final 12 players. Each team is allowed 12 roster spots at the Eurobasket. And Luka's best friend is one of the players on the team. He's been battling with a couple of other guys who have a lot of fans too here as well. So there's a lot of fights who should have made the team if friendship with Luka should be a factor of making a team. More or less the same debates we're having all season long with the Mavs. A lot of those same debates, even when we're talking about the system Slovenia plays. Some fans are complaining it's too Luka-centric. Luka has the ball too much.
That's amazing.
The same debates, Kirk. It's fascinating. It's fascinating, like having those same debates in a way during the summer with the national team, with Slovenian fans that I have with Mavs fans from all around the world on Twitter during the season.
That's right. That's right. So, man. So I get some of this stuff just like wrapped up and mixed up in my head. So I've watched or paid attention to. So I have a TV service where I can actually find some of these games. Like I watched on I think the channel is Sport Club 1. I watched the and listened to the announcers. Didn't understand what anybody was saying when it was Slovenia versus Jokic's. What's wrong with me right now? I'm still tired. You can tell. When they played Serbia earlier this month, and it's just a different vibe. Like I've also watched the Serbia-Greece game, and like that was just some of the best high-level basketball I've ever seen outside of like the NBA finals and conference finals. Just real.
I wasn't kidding when I said fans won't be able to watch this intensity of basketball till next year's playoffs. And quality of basketball too. Let's not forget, we have 3 of the top 5, 6, whatever, NBA players at the tournament with Jokic, Giannis, and Luka. A lot of players already said this is going to be the strongest tournament Eurobasket in history. I heard a lot of coaches and players already said it. Dragic certainly said it, that this is going to be the strongest one in the history. And pretty much all the teams, France has 4 NBA players. Most of the teams, if not all, have 3 or 2. There's around 35 NBA players. The other players are top EuroLeague players, Eurocup players. Some of them, a lot of them, I would venture to say, could be in an NBA rotation, a 7th, 8th, and 9th guy in the rotation easily. We actually see how well Dorsey is playing right now for Greece. Had another good game yesterday against Belgium. He's looking really well, and he wasn't even the best guy on his EuroLeague team in Europe these past 2 seasons. He was, let's say, the 3rd best guy.
I mean, I've had international fans tell me, I've had international fans basically crush this guy who was like, he might be the 4th. Somebody said he might be the 4th or 5th best guy on the team that he was leaving. So
he had a really good offer from one of the top four EuroLeague team for $3 million 2 seasons. So he's leaving a lot of money on the table to come to the Mavs. But yeah, it's true. He wasn't the best guy on the team, that's for sure. And that's just the point I'm making. He's looking really good now playing with Giannis. He definitely looks like a guy who could be 7th, 8th, or 9th guy in an NBA rotation. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, okay. I feel like now anybody who hasn't paid attention has an idea of what's going on, and knows that, all right, Eurobasket starts tomorrow or Wednesday, the 31st of August, and then basically goes 3 straight weeks up until things are done. So walk us through elements of, one kind of how the tournament is structured for Slovenia and what their path is back to a title, and then kind of, I want to hear your thoughts on what you think their chances are.
Yeah, one of my hot takes, pre-tournament hot takes, is we'll get a definite answer who the best player in the world right now is with Jokic, Luka, and Giannis, but maybe about that a little bit later. But Slovenia's path. Slovenia is in the proverbial group of death. It's by far the strongest group at the tournament, with 3 of the top 5 power ranked teams before the start of the tournament, with Slovenia, France, and Lithuania. Bosnia in the qualifiers that were just played, beat France a couple of nights ago. Germany beat Slovenia yesterday. So even Bosnia with Nurkic and Janan Musa, whom some NBA fans might also know, he has returned to Europe after not having a successful run. He was drafted the same year as Luka, but didn't really get a chance with the Nets. But I think he'll return to the NBA. He's a guy that is a really good player. And of course, Nurkic is... and Nurkic thoroughly outplayed Gobert in the game against France. Yeah, it was another good game. All of those teams that I mentioned right now, Germany, Slovenia, Bosnia, France, and Lithuania, who's a constant, let's say, top 5, top 6, top 6 European team. All of those teams are in Slovenia's group. And Hungary, which is definitely the worst team in the group. They won't be a favorite in any game they'll play in the group, but they're not a bad team. They're not scrubs. We often say now, with the development of basketball in Europe, basketball has been tremendously developing all around the world, and it's really growing sport, which I really like to see. But in Europe specifically, it's really, we often say anybody can beat anybody. And just to illustrate that, 12 of the top 15 FIBA ranked men's teams come from Europe. That's why many people say Eurobasket is stronger than World Cup, because out of those 12, 13 teams, pretty much any team can beat, on any given day, can beat any other team, any better ranked team. So the parity, the competition level is tremendous. And this group, Slovenia's group, will be especially perilous because, one of the really good teams won't make it. 4 teams proceed to the next level of competition in the best of 16.
Okay.
Best of 32, I'm sorry.
Okay. Fascinating. All right. So that makes, I guess that makes the path tougher, because when you get out of the group play, you're reseeding after that depends on how you finish in group play. I guess outside of their immediate group, then, who are the teams that you would be most that pose like the biggest challenge to Slovenia?
In the group Slovenia plays in the start, pretty much every game they start. The first game will be played against Lithuania. They played Lithuania in last year's Olympic qualifiers.
Yep.
Beat them on their home court. Lithuania with Sabonis and Valančiūnas. The team is pretty much built around them. They're playing together, 4 and 5. Looks like an interesting combo. They have better shooters than they had last year around them. They're dangerous, always will be, always have been. France is probably, along with Slovenia, I was watching the power rankings. FIBA was posting their power rankings all throughout the friendly games and qualifiers. Slovenia has been first in their power rankings constantly, but there wasn't switching between the next 3 teams. And those are, if we look at the entire tournament, France, which I already mentioned, Serbia, and Greece. So France, they have a great team, beat USA in the group stage last year at the Olympics and narrowly lost in the finals. It was actually a pretty close game. So they have a pretty much the same team. 2 players missing. Batum is missing, and Batum was actually the reason Slovenia lost against them with that incredible block in the last.
Yep, I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And when I watched them against Bosnia, actually it seemed to me that Batum and the other guy, Nando De Colo, who had a run with the Spurs and is a really good great EuroLeague player. He's also missing extremely experienced EuroLeague player, and those are, especially in these FIBA competitions, extremely valuable and look as good as elite NBA players do a lot of the time. So I thought they might be missing, although they weren't the best 2 or 3 players, so they do have their best players with, of course, Fournier and Gobert. The team is built around those two. And Gobert does usually look much better, especially offensively, in FIBA than he does in NBA. For some reason, I actually see him like finishing over smaller guys under the rim. And I don't know why he couldn't finish over Brunson under the rim when they played Mavs in the playoffs. For some reason, he finishes better in FIBA. It's funny, but those teams, France, Lithuania, and Slovenia, are the best teams in the group. But if we're talking the whole tournament, it's Slovenia, France, Serbia, and of course Greece. I think Greece might actually be underrated a bit because I constantly see them fourth or third or fourth in the power rankings. I think Serbia and Greece might actually pose the biggest danger in the end, but the margins here are minuscule. Really, when we're talking about the difference between Slovenia, France, Serbia, like I said, any of the best 12 or 13 teams in Europe can beat the other team, yet alone when we're talking like top 3, top 4 teams. It really is going to be, like I said in the beginning, one hell of a competitive tournament. I expect some fights too. It's going to be good. It's going to be, players really care. That's what matters the most. And when players really care, that's when we'll see the best basketball.
Well, and there's, when you watch these games, there's a lot of little things which stand out that I think are real fun. Number one, I really just love the look of the FIBA basketball compared to the NBA ball. And I've thought this since the day, since seeing like old clips of the American Basketball League, the ABA, where they used to have a red, white, and blue ball. When these skilled players shoot a ball like online and the way it rotates, particularly from distance, it's just so pretty to look at. It's a silly thing, but I really love it. Two, the crowds.
It's funny. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Right.
I just listened a couple of days ago a podcast with Mirza Teletovic, the shooter who played for the Suns, Bucks, Knicks as well. Yeah. Great shooter. And he was talking just about that. The feel of FIBA basketball and the difference between that basketball and the one in the NBA, and how you really needed time to get accustomed.
It's really strange. I've shot an NBA ball, and if you go buy an official one for anyone that does it, compared to a ball that you can get, like the common ball I see in pickup gyms around here, it's an Evolution ball, but like the feel of the leather is just so different, little smoother compared to the NBA ball, which is it's hard. I know it sounds stupid to say the ball is hard, but like it's crazy. It's a really different feeling. But the next thing I love watching is the crowds. We touched on this a little bit, but it's a different vibe. And then third, I think I remember seeing a study on this several years ago. The fact that the games are 40 minutes makes a huge difference. NBA games are 8 minutes longer. 8 minutes is another, it's like 16 or 20%, depending on what it's a significant chunk of time. So like over a 48-minute game, the better team usually wins. It's just harder in a 48-minute team because you just have more time to eventually make a comeback. In a 40-minute game, things seem to get uncomfortable pretty quickly. To where if you're not, and obviously this is a stupid statement because time is time. Like if you're within striking distance in 5 minutes, anything can happen. But it's just it makes the less time makes me, when I'm watching these, there's just more. It feels like the game is a little more pressure packed because there's less time.
Yeah, and when we take into account the tournament format, also 1 game elimination tournament, I would compare it to that's why March Madness is so popular during that period. And that's why a lot of people who don't watch probably NCAA watch it during that time. Shorter games and 1 game elimination tournament, a lot players carrying a lot to win, and crazy fans. It's like March Madness with NBA level players. with NBA players when we're talking about Eurobasket. So with the best players in the world. So yeah, it's gonna be really a delight for basketball fans to watch. I was watching a lot of qualifiers the last few games. Also watching some of Latvia play. KP does look as good as ever, landing on 2 feet when dunking.
He did look good. He's also got this amazing like bad guy facial hair thing going on.
Yeah, bearded KP.
It's good. I'm glad for him. I think like, you know, it's I don't even want to talk
Hasn't
about
played
KP.
for his national team since 2017 because he was constantly injured, just like with the Mavs, saying discussions with the Latvian fans for the national team. He looks healthy. If he's playing for national team, he definitely has.
He must be feeling good.
As good as he's been feeling in 5 years.
That's good for him. Well, okay, there's one last thing I wanted to touch base on now that you're here. The Mavericks hired I think was he the first Slovenian player drafted to the NBA?
Oh yeah, Marko Milic, a legend in Slovenia, just as big of a legend as all the other basketball stars. He was the first Slovenian in NBA. I think he was 18 when he got drafted, and the legend goes. Actually, there's still you can still see clips on Twitter that he actually got drafted because of his dunk in the Slovenian All-Star game. Was it 95, 96, where he dunked over the car, but actually over the car.
That's
not
amazing.
Not like Blake Griffin over the car.
Sure, yeah.
He went over the car. And the legend goes that was actually the clip that went viral. It was supposed to be shown on Sports Center, or whatever you guys had in those days. Maybe Sports Center too. I don't know. It's an old show. It was shown on American TV as well, and supposedly that's what got him drafted. He was an extremely athletic guy, known for his athleticism, probably. I would say one of the most, if you look at his highlights, one of the most athletic players, sort of 6'5", 6'6", kind of in later stages of career, played more 3-4, kind of like Barkley, maybe Zion. Like if I'm looking some exaggerated comparisons, but sort of he played like that. He was an extremely athletic guy, great rebounder for his size, but started playing later. Actually was an athletics guy. I think he like all kinds of disciplines, like multi-sports guy, but basketball came later, and he needed a lot of time to develop his basketball skills to had a long, successful career, played for pretty much all of the best teams in Europe, moved around a lot, but always played for top teams. And the last 4 years, 5 years, I think, since he retired, 4 or 5, he's been in charge of youth development for the Slovenian Basketball Federation. Knows Luka since he was a kid.
Okay.
Well. Yeah, he just like there's a photo of the Milic Luka, 5 or 6 year old Luka, 17, 18, 19-year-old Dragic, Milic, and Luka's father, Dragic, Milic, and Sasha Doncic, Luka's dad, all played for the same team, and Luka was the mob boy.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great stuff.
He was always with the team in the locker room. The stories go, he pretty much grew up in the locker room.
So what do you think, like understanding what you know about him as a coach and player development, what do you think about the hire? Do you think it's a good fit? Because I've been a little concerned is not the right word, but when, you know, the former national team coach, whose name escapes me at the moment, moved on to coach with the Nets. Kokoskov, signs with the Nets and probably immediately regrets that decision. And then, you know, the Mavericks don't sign Dragic, which is going to be something that I think they regret. And there's not really a veteran presence on the team. There's Luka, there's Jason Kidd, and obviously, like Luka's the important part. But I've always thought, given his age and sort of his, you know, I think Luka will eventually develop into a vocal leader, but at 23 years old, it's a lot to expect of him. And so I'd been kind of concerned about things to help keep him grounded, for lack of a better description. And bringing someone in that has known him for quite a time, I think is at least important based on that. But what do you think? What do you think he brings to the table for the Mavericks?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts here when you mentioned Dragic and the whole thing of them. The last time we talked, I think it was right before free agency, the start, like right before July 1st or something like that. And most of us thought Dragic is going to join the team just because of the reasons you just mentioned. Luka does need somebody mature, somebody who respects. He always had great veteran locker room leadership in his team. Real Madrid, it's almost like a military. I mean, guys get along, but there's a hierarchy there, which is like respected, and what the guys who are the most respected in the locker room say goes. There's no debate. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It goes. If they say shut up, you shut up, or you don't play. It's basically, that's the atmosphere Luka grew up in. His coach told him to shut up and play many times. There's clips of that on YouTube. I mean, it's a completely different atmosphere and relationship between the coach and the players than it is in FIBA, in European club basketball especially. It really is like a military. The coach is the colonel and the guys are the soldiers. Basically, there's no debates. There's funny clips of top European coaches on YouTube yelling at guys. It's spectacular. If you just look at Obradovic, Gigi Datome, that's all I'm going to say. Google that and you're going to get a spectacular example of Euro League coaching. It's a different relationship. And I think Luka doesn't, there's no debate about it. Luka does need that on the Mavs. Why they didn't go for Dragic, I don't know if I want to go too deep in some conspiracy theories, but hey, I have a hot take. I saw on Twitter somebody mentioned it in a thread in a debate with Josh Bowe, and I can't remember who said it. I saw it in a thread, but it was a verified account. It was, I think, one of the reporters. I'm sure you know the guy, but he mentioned that it's like the way Mavs sort of are resisting signing Dragic for years now, not just this summer, but for years. It's like they don't want somebody who has a huge influence on Luka in the locker room if things go bad. And I thought about it, and I actually think there might be something to that. Dragic is a Miami Heat guy. I think he will work in the front office of the Miami Heat after he retires, or in some capacity for them. He keeps talking in one of the podcasts he did. He had a 10-minute ode to Udonis Haslem. How this is his ultimate example of a leader and chemistry guy, and how this is like the of leadership when it comes to the NBA league. And he's a Miami Heat. So if he comes, he has a huge influence on Luka. Does Cuban and the rest of the leadership really want Dragic telling Luka, that never happened to me, man. That I played for Heat 7 years, 8 years. Pat took me to the room. He told me everything straight up. And he did say that in the podcast interviews he did. They've always been straight up with me. He mentioned that Toronto they had a deal to trade him last summer when things went wrong with Toronto. He actually said they had a deal to trade him, and they sort of reneged on their word. But that's a different story. He did say nobody's been as straight up with me as Pat Riley and the rest of the guys. So if he's telling that to Luka when things aren't going well on the team, and we know that Mavs haven't been really terribly successful putting a contender around Luka in the years where they had a lot of good chances to bring in better pieces than they did.
Yeah. There's a lot we can talk about there, but we don't have time. So
I know. A bit of a hot take.
Oh no, that's a good take. But as far as Marko though, do you think this is at least this is a pretty good coaching hire. I think, just from the more I learn about it. At the time, I was just kind of like, well, what are we doing here? And the more I look into it, the more I am pretty pleased with the hire. You think it's a good one for Dallas?
Marko is a guy who's loved by all the players who played with him all around the world. I don't know, we didn't mention it yet. He did play with Kid as well on the Suns when he got drafted. So that is, I don't know if they're still communicating or whatever, but they do have a connection of being on the same team in 98, 99, something like that. So he's a guy that knows Kid. He's a guy that has worked really well on the basketball federation, working with younger players. Like I said, younger, older, everybody loves him. All the players love him. Luka loves him. I don't know specifically, like as a coach, as a development coach, how he is, but Slovenia is developing good players. I can say that basketball federation in Slovenia, when it comes to younger selections, is doing a good job of producing, working with the talent pool they have. So, and he's part of that. So, hasn't worked on the level of an NBA team, of course, as a development coach, that level of talent. How he'll transition to that, we'll see. But as a good guy in the locker room that I'm sure all the players will like to play cards with, talk with, is also a guy, a jokester. Let's say a guy who likes to joke around.
Sure.
I think there's absolutely no risk in bringing him over. And he's a guy who, probably won't be telling to Luka. That didn't happen to me in Miami. He's going to play for Pats.
Thanks. Yeah. Let's end on that happy note. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining today and talking about this. And, with 3 weeks of basketball and then a short break and then back in NBA training camp, if things go well and, this ends up being a really nice tournament for Slovenia. I'd like to have you on again, either during the run or after it, and we'll talk soon. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. Love to do it anytime. And we'll talk. Let's see how it goes. I'm just looking forward to a lot of great basketball and hoping Mavs fans are going to enjoy some high-level basketball too. Pick a team. Doesn't need to be Slovenia and go with it. It's fun. It's fun. Like I said, March Madness with NBA level players. So
that's right.
Let's go.
All right. This has been Kirk and Matej. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.